Okay, good afternoon. So yesterday we discussed about the important crops that are grown in India and the methods of their cultivation and the precautions that are to be taken and what are the plant protection mechanisms that are to be followed, etc. We discussed yesterday about the cultivation of wheat, rice, maize, sorghum, bajra, ragi, groundnut, safflower, sunflower, black gram, green gram, red gram, Bengal gram, etc. So all these fall under what we call food crops. Now today we'll discuss about the cash crops. Apart from food, a farmer needs sufficient money to lead a respectable life. So even for growing crops or even for cultivation also, he needs financial help. So he gets his money by growing various cash crops. Cash crops are otherwise known as commercial crops, which help in earning sufficient money for the farmer. So in today's class, we discuss about the methods of cultivation of sugarcane, cotton, tobacco, chilies, turmeric, mango, that is fruit crops such as mango, cashew nut, coconut, even if possible, citrus fruits. So to begin with, let us begin with sugarcane. As you know, sugarcane, this is the second most populous cash crop that is being grown across India. Now, sugarcane is grown in India for sugar and joggery. Unlike Western countries like USA, they get a good amount of their sugar, not only from sugarcane, but also from sugar beet. But in India, we depend for our sugar and jaggery solely on sugarcane. Now, this sugarcane, sugarcane is supposed to be, Indian Peninsula is supposed to be the native place for sugarcane and is being cultivated since times immemorial. And this, as far as finance is concerned, or as far economics are concerned, this after cotton, this is the most money earning cash crop that is being cultivated across India. Now, apart from this, it is second to cotton as far as employment generated in India. Now, it provides employment for more than 1 crore directly or indirectly. Sugarcane industries. Sugarcane, of course, farmers get employment, labor get employment, even the pesticide manufacturers get employment, and the factories, that is cane crushing factories, sugar making factories, they get profits and also employment for the labor there. And of course, the sugar consumption and the marketers. Apart from that, even the byproducts of cane industry, that is bagasse, that is the leftover crushed remains of the cane, that can be used as a fuel. It can also be used for making paper and other materials. And in sugar industries and also in joggery making units, you get what we call the leftover sugar part or the cane part, that what we call that can be fermented, and from that you get alcohols. That is even raw material for the breweries. Breweries directly, indirectly depend on sugarcane. Sucrose, glucose, fermentation. You get ethanol, ethyl alcohol, and carbon dioxide, of course, carbon dioxide to the bakeries, and alcohol for the breweries. So this is how sugarcane growing or sugarcane crop providing not only employment but also helping India to earn good amount of foreign exchange. Now coming to the soils, or first of all the areas. Generally once upon a time, Cuba used to be called as the sugar bowl of the world. Now we are proud to say that India now ranks first in terms of sugar production. Now this has been possible because of the efforts of breeders, plant breeders. Nowadays, we have early maturing sugarcane varieties which are resistant for various pests and diseases, and early maturing, and they show good response for the fertilizer you give. And because of all coordinated efforts of various people, we could achieve number one position in terms of sugar production in the world. Now coming to the areas in India, especially the Gangetic plains and Godavari and Kaveri deltas are very famous for raising sugarcane. Now UP, Uttar Pradesh, stands first in India, and then Bihar, even Madhya Pradesh, even Punjab in some areas, Rajasthan, Punjab areas, and Bengal, even Orissa, Andhra, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Gujarat. So to say, almost all the, except some cold areas such as your Jammu and Kashmir or Himachal, etc. Excluding that, across India, it is grown in almost all the states. Now, the soils, generally alluvial soils, the deltoid soils are very good for raising this sugarcane crop. In AP, or in AP generally, the Krishna and Guntur, Godavari districts, even certain pockets of, Kurnool, Nizamabad, as far as Telangana is concerned, and here and there where the assured water is available, where the groundwater is available, where the soils are very good, and where the soils are fertile soils are available, there sugarcane is grown. And the other important factor you have to learn when you write about the sugarcane is, this is the crop which needs almost 1 year. There is no other crop, which requires 1 year for its maturity. Now this is the crop, generally it requires some early maturing, means some come for harvest in 11 months, the other 12, 13, 14 months or so. Now here, as far as the exam is concerned, generally you will be asked to write about the seed material, sugarcane seed material, and the methods of plantation. That is how the seeds are being planted. Now coming to the seed material, generally, unlike other crops, of course, similar to your ginger or curcuma, haldi, here the vegetative parts are used as seed material. You don't have seed. So the vegetative parts, that is sets of 2 or 3 internodes, especially 1/3 of the top part. So if you are sending your cane after harvesting, if you are sending your cane for the crushing, generally the top 1/3 is cut, and that will be kept as a seed for the next season. Even if you send it also, generally the recovery of sugar from that will be very least. It's not too sweet also, even to take. And generally sets, it is with 2 or 3 buds are taken as seed material. And in some areas, the sugarcane is raised, and the cane of 6 to 8 months years old, that will be cut, and that will be used, and sets of 1 or 2 internodes, at least with 2, 3 buds are used as seed material. Now, in some cases, even ship method is also used, wherein the bud with a little bit to 1 or 2 inches deep will be cut, and that will be used as a material, and the rest will be used for recovery of cane juice. Now, this is the seed material. Now, coming to the plantation. Now, generally, beforehand, the soil or the plot or the field will be plowed thoroughly and will be leveled by using harrow, blade harrow, etc. And then it will be watered, and that is ready for plantation. Now here generally the planting, there are primarily 3 modes of planting are there. One is furrow plantation, the other is what we call trenches, and the third one is flat beds. So furrows means here the canes 2 or 3 internodal length with 3 buds. Generally they are led behind the plow farm. So plowing is done, and in the plow you get furrows. Into the furrows, generally these are planted, these are placed, and generally, unlike other crops, it will not be fully covered. It all generally farmers, they press through their feet 4 to 5 centimeters deep into the soil, not fully covering. So buds have to be exposed, or at least they should be in touch with the soil. From there, by absorbing moisture, etc., the bud sprouts and generates what we call, adventitious roots, and thus the cane establishes itself. It becomes an independent plant itself. So these are the 3 modes. One is furrow plantation. The second one is what we call trench plantation. Third one is flat bed. In all the cases, generally, after putting one after the other at respective gaps, generally farmers will press them 5 centimeters deep or so. Then it will be watered, flooded with water. Then you see the sprouting. So this is the method of seed material and the method of plantation. Now, because I told you it responds well for the fertilizer. So that's why fertilizer, maybe your chemical fertilizer or organic manure in the farmyard manure or the compost, etc., is to be added to the field while preparation is done through ploughing and harrowing, etc. implements. So then coming to maturity, generally when it comes for maturity, and one more thing you have to, generally, unlike other crops, generally the plantation is taken up before or during summer itself, early summer, generally from January on, January, February, or March. These are the months when the plantation of sugarcane is taken. And by the time your monsoon sets in, even if there are heavy rains also, by that time you will see sprouting and you will see cane growing up. There is no danger of flooding. And even to avoid the minimal flooding also, farmers take up, generally they put earth just at the base of the cane, so that even if flooding also happens, nothing will happen to the crop. Then one more thing you have to remember here is what we call, propping. Propping is there. Now here, wrapping and propping, these are the 2 important things. Wrapping and propping are taken up to prevent from lodging, falling of the cane. Generally, sugarcane, it grows to a height of some say 8 to 9 feet, 10 feet or so, because it stands erect. If there is a gust of wind, there is every possibility for it to fall. So to prevent falling, lodging, generally 2 or 3 adjacent cranes are taken together and they are wrapped by using the dried leaves, and also young leaves are taken, and a kind of wrapping and roping is being done so that even there is a gust of wind, it will not fall. And the other is what we call propping, wrapping. Just you use either green leaves or dried leaves of the same cane. Now in propping here, additional support is provided by planting, by putting bamboos at regular intervals in the field. And to this bamboo, 4 to 5 canes along with this bamboo are tied, so that the lodging or the falling of cane does not take place. This is the method of growing. Now, of course, harvesting generally done by either using axe or the sickle, etc. And after harvest, generally the dried leaves are removed. And I told you, the top 1/3 is cut, and the rest is put into the lorry or a cart, and it will be taken to either to the sugarcane mill or to the area where you are making joggery. And the other thing you have to remember is the ripening is decided by using what we call hand refractometer, that tells you the percentage of sugar. And even if you boil the sugar cane juice, you will find out by looking at the joggery, by touching the joggery, quality of the joggery, then you can judge whether the cane is ready for harvest or not. Then finally, as far as the exam is concerned, they will ask you the method of joggery making. Joggery making is, generally sugar canes. Canes are crushed. Good example, cane juice nowadays available everywhere in summer areas. If you see on every street corner, you will see in Hyderabad and other cities, cane juice is available. There, the crusher is there, small motor is there. There, from that, you get juice. So here in joggery making, a bit bigger wheels are there, crushers are there. Either they will be run by using bullocks or through electric motor, and you get cane juice, and the leftover bagasse, what we call, that will be dried and that will be used as a fuel. And after extracting this, because it is acidic, to convert into rather neutral, lime water is added. Lime water is added so that it reaches around 7 pH, and then that will be boiled in big iron pans or containers, and it will be boiled under a big fire. And this fire, will be generated either by using a bagasse or your what we call wood or cola, etc., depending on the source you have. And it will be boiled. And generally, when you start heating, when it attains, 40 or 50 degrees centigrade within 1 hour or half an hour, based on the furnace that you are, or the chula you are using. And flocculation, that is the waste material, floats on the top of the container, and that will be removed. And then the heat will be increased. And after 2 or 3 hours of heating, now it almost the watery content goes up, and syrupy, syrup-like, a gold yellow color syrup remains at the bottom. And then by judging, that will be taken from the fire, and it will be poured into the separate areas, and it will be left for half an hour or so. Then by using what we call oars of wooden sticks, wooden oars or the sticks. By using it will be thoroughly mixed, and that will be put into molds. Now, good olden days generally, of course, if you are making joggery on a large scale, generally the molds will be of 5 to 10 kg or 15 kg or so. But nowadays, especially the joggery that comes from Maharashtra area, Sholapur area, you see cubes of half a kg, 1 kg or so. Good price is available for such even small cubes. So this is about how the joggery is being made. Now this is about the cultivation, the soils, method of cultivation, seed sets, modes of plantation, harvest, and making of joggery. Now it also suffers from, like others, it suffers from various pests and diseases. Of course, shoot fly is there, and shoot borer is there, stem borer is there, mealy bug is there, and leaf hoppers are some of the pests that are commonly found in sugarcane growing areas. And diseases, especially your Ustulago cytamine, smut disease is there. And the famous one is what we call infamous as red rot of sugarcane, that is Colitotrichum faucatum, causes red rot of sugarcane. Of course, red stripe is there, wilt disease, cephalosporium causes what we call wilt. So this is about the sugarcane. Then we move to the cotton, of course. So cotton is the most popular fiber crop, and this is the crop, which provides maximum employment for the farmers, for the three group of people, especially for the farmers, for the industrialists, even for the, business people. Farmers, they grow on a large tracts. When it is, ready, they will harvest it and they'll sell it to market or industry where ginning is taken and where the thread is made by weaving, and these threads will be ultimately sent to cloth industries where cloth is made, and the cloth will be sent to the market or the cloth merchants where it will be sent, or it will be sent to tailors where the mechanized ready-made garments are being made. So a lot of employment is generated by this cotton industry. So you get fiber. Cotton, one of the important basic needs, fiber. Roti, kapda or makan. You get your kapda, your clothing from cotton. Now, apart from your cotton or clothing, even the seeds, from the seeds also, you get cotton seed oil that can be used, after processing. It can be used for cooking also, and it can be used for making soaps, etc., for lubricants, etc. This can be used. And the cake that you get, either it can be fed to the cattle or it can be added to your field. So multi-purpose. Even the stalks, after taking your cotton from the cotton balls, the leftover stems, etc., that can be used as firewood. That can be used as firewood. So now coming to the cotton, cotton, of course, is an old crop, very old. And there are, recorded evidences to show that Hindus were the first community that wore cloth, that used cloths. It was in the Indian subcontinent. India means now not the present India. It spread to your Afghanistan, Gandhara. So it was in Nile, it was Sindhu. These were the areas where first cotton was being grown, and our earlier generations had the knowledge of raising or growing this cotton and making cloth, etc. And coming to the present day scenario, now it is grown. Of course, it is a tropical. It is mostly grown in tropical areas where the sunlight and bright sunshine is there, where the temperature will be around 20 to 30 degrees centigrade. These are the areas which are ideal for growing cotton. Cool areas are not convenient for raising this crop. Now, USA, of course, Russia, China, Brazil, Pakistan, your Egypt, Sudan, India. These are the major, even Bangladesh, of course. These are the major, cotton growing areas of the world. In India, now, especially the textile mills, they are concentrated in Mumbai and Ahmedabad. That is, it is mostly grown in Maharashtra and Gujarat. These are famous. Of course, not only these two, but even in Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra and Karnataka are also famous for cotton crop. In Telangana, generally the Adilabad, black cotton soils, where the heavy black cotton soils are available, they are quite ideal for raising this cotton. We have heavy black cotton soils in Adilabad and also in Warangal area. So some tracts of Nizamabad, Warangal, Karimnagar, and even some tracts of Mahbubnagar, Nalgonda, Medak, Rangareddy. These are the areas where black cotton soil is available, where heavy soils, clay soils are available. These are quite ideal for raising cotton. Now, the soil which is heavy and which has the ability to store moisture, water retaining capacity. See, generally, sandy soils are not good. They can't store required, water. Moisture content is very least. So the soils which are good in water holding capacity are ideal for raising cotton crop. Now, coming to the, this cotton, there are four important species, old world cotton and new world cotton, they are otherwise called. See, old world cotton are traditional varieties, as we call, Gossypium, Arboreum, Gossypium, herbaceae. These are diploids. Whereas new world cottons, American upland cotton, that is Gossypium hirsutum, and Egyptian cotton, that is Gossypium barbadans. These two are tetraploids, whereas Arboreum and herbaceum are diploids. Now, generally, the tetraploids are high-yielding varieties produced after various breeding experiments, and of course, their yield is very good, and the quality of the cotton that you get from the new world varieties, your herbaceum and hirsutum, very good quality. The luster is very bright luster, white, and the threads are what we call staple length of the fiber is very good, and its ability to bear the weight that we call, it is very good. The fiber ability, length is more, and brightness is more, and weaving or spinning ability is also important characteristic. Spinning ability is also important thing one has to bear in mind. So these are spinning qualities has to be there, and color of the cotton is another important. Fiber strength, that is ability to stretch and bear the weight. Fiber maturity and the length, as I already told you. So these are ginning percentage, fiber strength, fiber length, color, trash, content, fiber maturity, fiber fitness, spinning quality. These are the parameters on which the price of the cotton is decided. Okay, so now, of course, the New World cottons are very good, but there are certain deficiencies. They are prone for, various diseases and pests. Generally, the bollworm menace is very large, and farmers some 10 years back used to commit suicide, unable to clear the debts of these pesticides. They used to, pests develop resistant against various pesticides. Now, To tackle this, breeders have developed, innovative practices, and they have produced varieties which are known as, BT varieties. That is BT cotton. BT is nothing but Bacillus thuringiensis. Now here, if you raise this BT cotton, you need not go for any spraying of pesticides, because the leaves, if the insect or the larva feeds on the plant juices, the uh, the poisonous crystals, what we call cryproteins, they enter into the gut of the insect. They damage its intestine, and ultimately insect dies. But of course, nowadays a lot of discussion is going on. Of course, our Ministry of Agriculture and Biotechnology Department have cleared the cotton for its growing BT cotton, but there are apprehensions regarding the food crops such as BT brinjal is there, BT your tomato are there, many are there, but they are yet to be released. Fearing, if any unknown thing happens, it is very difficult to tackle them. So this is about cotton. Of course, as you know, generally this is grown as a kharif crop, and it comes for harvest. Generally, seeding is or plantation, or especially by seeds, they will be put at regular intervals, and intercultivation, or what we through blade arrows is taken, and at regular intervals 3 or 4 weedings are taken, so that the crop comes up well. And generally, when balls they are growing, the bright sunshine is very much needed. And after growing, when it bursts open and your cotton comes and visible, and by employing labor, farmer plucks these or picks up the cotton from the cotton, or broken, or cotton balls. And whereas in Western countries, where the labor are not available, they go for mechanized harvest, machines harvest, machine harvesting is taken. And here, because we have sufficient labor is available, and using labor, generally the harvest is done. And generally, at not 4 to 5 pickings are being done, because all your balls, all your capsules do not open at a given time. So at regular, every 1 week or so, after 4 or 5 weeks, by the end of 4 or 5 weeks, the entire crop comes. And then at the end, farmer cuts these branches at the tip, or by using his what we call ploughing techniques, he removes that. Either he burns it or uses it as a fuel. So this is about the cotton, methods of cotton and uses of cotton. Now, then we move to what we call tobacco. The tobacco, as you know, it is a narcotic crop. It is a narcotic crop, and generally, it doesn't belong to India. It was introduced to India by Portuguese, and here the important part is, unlike other crops, the important part is, economically important part is what? It is the leaf. Tobacco leaf is the economically important part, and generally cured leaves. Curing is done. Curing is nothing but a kind of fermentation. Curing is nothing but drying. Various techniques are involved in the method of drying. By using those techniques, right curing will be done, so that the content of your nicotine alkaloid and good aroma you get after curing, and that will be ready for making cigars, or your smoking pipes, or smoking cigarettes, BDs, snuffing, chewing. So in various forms, the tobacco is being used. Cigarettes, cigars, chewing, snuffing also. So there are primarily two varieties or two species as such, Nicotiana tabacum and Nicotiana rustica. Generally, Nicotiana tabacum, big leaves, leaves are very big, and generally they are used in making cigars and also for a cigarette. Whereas rustica, generally it is used in making your pan paraga or your chewable tobacco products and your snuff making, rustica. So both contain what we call nicotine is the alkaloid. So you get a kind of refresh. People say who are habituated for taking the cigarette or BD, they feel unrest at regular, unless and until they go for smoking, they don't feel comfortable. We know we are habituated taking tea or coffee. At the end of that, because of the effect of caffeine, you feel relaxed. So is the case with tobacco. Of course, now doctors advise you not to go for smoking because nicotine or smoking, they are carcinogenic. They cause cancer, especially your lung cancer and chewing, your mouth cancer, etc. Throat cancer, all cancers are because of high use of this nicotine or tobacco products. Now, tobacco, generally tobacco in India, Andhra Pradesh, United Andhra Pradesh, of course, so to say, in Telangana, there are not good areas where tobacco is taken up, but in Andhra areas, still Andhra ranks first as far as the tobacco is concerned, and generally the Guntur, Nellore, and parts of your Prakasham, Guntur, Nellore. These are the three districts which are famous for the cultivation of tobacco because soils there, the light sandy soils, light sandy loamy soils are very good for the tobacco cultivation. There they are available. That's why their tobacco cultivation is taken up on a large scale. Now, Virginia tobacco, which is very famous one, is being cultivated there. Now here, transplantation. Here, transplantation method is there. First, nursery tobacco is raised, then the field is prepared, and at regular points, regular intervals, these seedlings are planted, and weedings will be there. And generally, this is a rabi crop. Generally, the plantation will be taken up as a second crop, or in some cases, it will be kept as fallow. And when the southwest monsoon recedes, when the monsoon rains stop, and that is the time generally during the last week of your September or from the first week of October or so, generally the plantation of the seedlings of tobacco is taken up on the pre-prepared plots. Now, generally, the tobacco, it comes for harvest after 4 to 5 months or so. Then the harvest is done. Generally, harvest, when the green leaves, of course, when green leaves turn to yellowing. When yellowing starts appearing either from the tip or from the edges, then the farmer thinks that it is ready for harvest. Now, before knowing about the techniques of harvest and curing, let us know about what we call the meaning of priming, or what we call, here the generally the top bud, what we call topping and desuckering. Topping and desuckering, these are the two techniques. Topping means here when the tobacco, main stem or the main axis grows, it grows. Growth is because of the top meristematic. Meristem, apical meristem is the reason for elongation. Now, generally, the crop will not be allowed, or the tobacco plant will not be allowed to grow indefinitely. After reaching certain height, generally the apical bud is removed or cut, either by hand or by using a small scissor. It will be cut. This cutting of the apical bud is what we call topping. And when topping is done, when apical bud is lost, generally axillary buds become active, and you see arising of axillary branches. Now even the cutting of axillary branches is also taken up, that what we call desuckering. So the main purpose of this topping and desuckering is to allow the passage of the photosynthate into the leaves, not to the reproductive parts, that is flowers or seeds. Because here the important part is our leaf. So leaf, generally farmer tries to remove the inflorescence. So this is what we call, so sometimes you may get it under what we call short notes or under your objective, the topping and desucking. So in order to check the flow of photosynthate to the reproductive areas, farmer cuts them so that the entire photosynthate enters into the leaves. So leaves become very long and very wide and full of, they get full weight, and yield will be more. So now this is about what we call topping and desucking. And then we were discussing about, generally when it comes for harvest, I told you, the slowly turns from green to yellowing, and that is the time to start harvesting. Generally, the two main modes of harvesting, one is what we call priming. Priming is one wherein you, what we call, the ripened leaves are separate. Plucking, separating the ripened yellowing leaves from the main part. So generally, because all the leaves do not come for harvest at a time, generally lower leaves come for harvest earlier because they are older. Younger leaves are on the top. So from the base, farmer starts cutting them. So cutting or separating of mature leaves is what is called priming. And in some areas, instead of doing that, farmer waits for 1 week or so that all the leaves almost come for harvest. At that time, the entire plant is cut at the base. It's cut at the base and left on the field for a day or two. Then the entire will be bundled and taken to the barns or where the curing process is taken up. Now here, curing, it usually refers to what we call regulated drying. Regulated drying of the harvested fresh tobacco leaves under controlled conditions is what we call the curing. So curing usually refers to regulated drying of harvested fresh tobacco leaves under what we call controlled conditions of temperature and humidity, so that you get your tobacco with desired chemical and physical properties. So it has desirable physical and chemical properties. So that is what is being done in curing. So curing is nothing but drying, not simple exposing under sunlight, throwing under sunlight. It's not so. Separate techniques are there that to be dried under controlled conditions. So this drying of the harvested tobacco under controlled conditions of temperature and humidity is what we call the curing. And generally there are 4 or 5, of course, mainly 4 are there, of course. One is what we call flue curing, then sun curing, air curing, and pit curing. Of all, generally the flue curing is most popular, and where in separate heat chambers, smoke chambers, all the cut leaves are taken, and they are they are strung to bamboo sticks. Bamboo sticks of 2 or 3 meters are taken, and by using threads, maybe your jute or otherwise, and they are hung onto the bamboo stick, and they'll be taken to the chamber, especially these barns where the fire or hot air is available, hot air smoke is available. So they keep these cut tobaccos, which are hung on the stringing on a bamboo stick. They'll be kept in the chamber for maybe up to 105 Fahrenheit or so, and it depends. It depends on in some cases for what we call 3 to 4 days or so. So progressively, so not one day. So maybe 18 to 100 hours or so, it will be kept on that, and later on they'll be taken out and cooled, and then they'll be packed. So the other is what we call sun curing, wherein cigars and chewing tobaccos are generally strung on a bamboo poles, and they are kept in the sunlight. They're kept in the sunlight, and this will be it takes maybe about 15 to 20 or more than that for the entire sun curing to get completed. Air curing is another, where about here generally hookah tobacco. Hookah tobacco is generally air curing is taken up, and the last one is what we call pit curing. So it is done in what we call Lanka tobacco, Lanka tobacco or Lanka tobacco. Here hookah and chewing tobaccos fall under what we call under pit curing. Here the pits of 1 to 1.5 meter length and breadth and depth are made, and 2 such pits side by side are dug, and into that smothering, that is on the sides and the bottom, either your what we call palmara leaves or grass or the fodder, etc., will be used as a smothering or for bottom, covering the bottom of the pit, and onto that the harvested leaves are kept in, and then it will be kept for 24 hours or sometimes 36 hours or so. Then, because of high pressure and heat that is generated in the pit, the moisture is lost. The leaves become dry. So initially, when you cut the leaves, they have something like 70% of moisture or so. So after curing, it comes down to 12 to 15% or so. So then these are ready for what we call, for packing and for exporting or for shifting these to markets. So this is about tobacco. Tobacco, of course, nowadays, but day by day, because of health consciousness and doctor's advice, people are not, or rather stopping taking of this smoking, etc. And because of health consciousness, people are not doing that. Now, then we move to the fruit crops. Now, first of all, we'll begin with mango. Mango, as you know, it is the pride fruit of India, and Indian subcontinent is supposed to be the native for the mango. Mango is nothing but your Mangifera indica, a member of Anacardiaceae. And here, our traditional varieties, big trees are there, and they come for flowering and fruiting after 15 years or so. But now we have varieties, because of various vegetative techniques, grafting techniques, using various grafting techniques, we have raised the mango varieties, which come for flowering and fruiting within 3 to 4 years of their plantation. Now here, mostly, of course, it is grown in Asia, Egypt, South America, etc. Even Israel, Africa are the areas where a lot of mangoes are being grown. Coming to India, generally Uttar Pradesh, of course, tops on the list, And of course, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal are the other leading states of India where the mango orchards are found on large tracts. Now, coming to the examination point of view, they'll ask you to mention about the mango varieties. So generally commercial varieties are your Banganapalli, Alampur, Suvarnarekha, Neelam, Malgova, Chinnarasam, Pedarasam, Navanitam. These are some of the varieties, popular varieties. So Banganapalli, Totapari, Suvarnarekha, Neelam, Pedarasam, Chinnarasam, Navanitam, Mahmuda, even Dasheri, Alampur, Bainishan, Mallika, Amrapali. So try to remember them. So Ratna, Sindura is there, Manjira, Neelam, Rumani, Javahar. These are some of the high-yielding varieties that are produced because of using what we call grafting technique. Now, because generally we go for grafting because it is a cross-pollinated crop. Generally, if you raise by using the stone or the seed of after eating your mango, you get the seed. If you grow that, because you don't get the same plant, because it is a cross-pollinated crop. So that's why we go for true breeding. We go for vegetative means of propagation, especially these grafting techniques. Now here, the as far as exam is concerned, they will ask you what we call the methods of harvest. Generally, harvest and storage. These are the two important topics generally you get in your exam. Harvesting, when it comes for maturity, generally in South India, generally they come for early mature. They come for maturity a bit earlier. If you go to North India, generally we get mangoes. Full season of mango will be April, May or so. But in North, it will be June and July or so. So generally, farmers, generally they go for they try to reach the market a bit early so that they get good prices. So now, fully harvested, when the mango is ripe enough or ready for, when it is ready for plucking and for storage and ultimately to convert into an eatable fruit, generally it develops what we call yellow patches on the top. So when you see the yellow patches, that what we call patukail. So it is ready for what we call plucking or harvesting. So generally by using bamboo sticks, on the tip of the bamboo stick, you see some nets are there, and it will be plucked very carefully. And generally, if it falls on the ground, there is every possibility for the breakage. The broken ones, they get spoiled in 3 or 4 days. So that's why care has to be taken so that no injury happens to the mango while plucking is being done. Now, after that, generally in normal cases, they ripe in 3 to 4 days. But now the farmers, they go for, transport to longer areas. For that, they pluck, they harvest a bit earlier, maybe a week ahead. They harvest it, and generally they shift it to the longer areas. So if you want to send your mango load to Delhi or other areas, longer areas, so truck takes at least 3 to 4 days to reach that. After reaching that area, it has to be unloaded. So after unloading it, generally it will be treated, hot water treatment will be given. So dipping in hot water of 50 or 55 degrees centigrade for a few minutes, and then it will be cooled, and for that, it will be artificial ripeners will be into a chamber, maybe a smoke chamber or calcium carbide. Of course, it is banned now, or ethanol. This is legalized, hormone. So into that chamber, if you put it in a smoke chamber or in a chamber where the ethylene is being released, so within 3 to 4 days, the green ones, turn into attractive yellow. and then you can market it. You release into market. Now, the other important thing you have to remember is storage. As you know, shelf life of the mangoes is only for a week or so. After ripening, you can, at the most, you can save it for a week or so. Later on, it gets spoiled. So, how to, enlarge its shelf life, increase shelf life? So there are mainly there are three important, techniques to enlarge the storage. One is what we call storage life or shelf life can be enhanced by storing them under what we call cold storage. Nowadays, cold storage are there. Even the government is creating such, facilities, and even in the market, even private entrepreneurs also have, cold storage facilities. There the temperature will be around 8 to 10 degrees centigrade. Under that cold condition, you can keep your mangoes, ripened mangoes, for 4 to 5 weeks, even sometimes even 5 to 7 weeks or so. The second one is what we call storing under what we call controlled conditions. Generally spoilage is because of when it gets exposed to oxygen, then the rate of respiration goes up, and of course the fructose, it gets converted into glucose, and so, and because of these conversions, ultimately your alcohol, and even there is an attack from the insects also, it gets spoiled. So this can be checked, by increasing what in place of your oxygen, you increase the concentration of carbon dioxide. So your respiratory rate will be checked so that its shelf life gets enhanced. Third one is what we call, skin coating with the wax. Wax coating is another where generally mangoes are dipped in wax solution, and 4 to 5% of 4 to 12% of wax solution is there made prior, and only your mangoes will be dipped in that. Because of thin water, wax coating is there. It checks your respiratory rate so that they can be stored for longer times. So this is what we call about the mango. Then we move to cashew nut. Cashew nut, cashew nut, as you know, these are very famous, and your Anacardium occidental is the scientific name, and it also does not belong to India. It was introduced by Portuguese in 16th century or so. It was first introduced in Western coast, and later on it moved to Eastern coast. Now, generally, this crop comes well on the coastal areas, like your coconut. Even the cashew nut also comes up in the coastal areas. So in India, generally Kerala tops as far as cashew production is concerned. Then your Goa is there, your beaches of or coastal areas of Karnataka, Maharashtra, and even Andhra also not lags behind as far as the production is concerned. So starting from your Srikakulam to Nellore, this coastal track, you will find the orchards of this cashew nut. Now this is a tree. Now it lives for 10 to 15 years or so. At every year, this is the time. Generally, it comes for flowering in the month of February, March, and fruits you get in the month of December. May, April last week or May. By that time, you see the fruits or the apples, and you have the nut. So nut is the economically important part, and this apple or the fleshy part generally, which is a false fruit, generally we do not use in our area. But in Kerala, even that is also not being wasted, and it will be fermented, and a kind of alcohol is prepared from that. It is what we call feni, is the drink, which is no way inferior to our whiskey. So now coming to cashew nuts, the cashew nuts, the cashew kernels, what we call, they are very rich in your proteins, fats, minerals, very rich. And if you take a handful of maybe 10 to 15 nuts, which may be salted or so, if you take them, you can feel, you can check your appetite, you can remain active for 3 to 4 hours there because for their high nutritive value. Now they're used, they're taken even as roasted ones or salted ones, or even they are added even to your what we call even dry fruit sweets are there, even in your semia, etc. And almost all even sweet preparations too have this cashew nut. In almost all curries, of course, bendi nowadays, bendi fry, you see this. So this is very famous because of its, it enhances the quality and also price of that particular curry. So now, of course, good number of varieties are there. And of course, so generally it is grown for kernels, that is roasted or salted ones, very delicious, I told you. And apart from that, even we get from the shells what we call CNSL, that is cashew nut shell liquid. This liquid is also used in what we call in making your varnishes, paints, your lubricants, etc. In them also, generally we use this cashew nut shell liquid. So you get three important, one is CNSL, that is liquid, that is oil, and I told you Fanny, and a kind of alcoholic drink, and then of course the most important is our kernels. Now coming to the important thing as far as exam is concerned, they'll ask you to write about what we call the processing. So what do you mean by processing? So the processing is nothing but the extraction of the edible kernels from the hard shell. The extraction of the edible kernel from the hard shell is what we call the processing. Now this processing units are there, of course. We have what we call in Quilon, there are more than 300 the processing units are there in Quilon, in Kerala. But of course, in Srikakulam, we have Palasa is famous, and Prakasham Betapalam is there, of course. East Godavari, Mori. These are the areas, are the towns where a good number of industries are there. They take up what we call processing of these kernels. Now, this processing involves, what we call roasting, shelling, drying, peeling, grading, sweating, and packing. You have to remember that. Once you understand, you can make your answer, a good answer. Roasting, as the name indicates, first of all, after collecting these, they'll be roasted on a flame, on a pan, of course, a porous pan, and that it is roasted. Now, when they are roasted, then when they become hot, from the shell, you see the shell liquid oozing, oil comes out. Now that catches fire. After when it catches fire, it will be left for 1 or 2 minutes. Thereafter, that will be poured on the ground and fire will be extinguished. So this is roasting, open pan roasting, what we call open pan roasting. Then drum roasting is another method wherein they will be fed into the rolling drum, and that will be, of course, heated from behind, and it will be poured from one end. And after heating, they slowly move from top to bottom. When they come down, by that time they catch fire, and then again here they'll be dumped on the ground and fire will be extinguished. And the last one is what we call oil bath routing. This oil is nothing but your CSNL or this cashew nut liquid or the oil that makes fire, and on that fire, they will be heated, and when it catches fire, again here also they will be poured on the ground. And because of all these three types of roastings, that is open pan or roasting, drum roasting, or your oil bath roasting, at the end, you see the shell becomes rather porous or cracked, brittle. It becomes brittle. Initially, even if you the seed coat and the fruit coat, they both get attached. So because of heating, they get separated. You can see a kind of sound at the end. So then the next process is what we call shelling. The shelling will be done, the separation, breaking of the shell, and ultimately taking out your kernel from the shell is what we call shelling. And generally, women will be employed, the children will be employed by using, small sticks. Generally, they break it. And of course, by using small wire, of course, they remove this kernel from the shell. Then drying, of course, after extracting, generally they will be dried. Generally, there are hot chambers are there. They'll put in the hot chamber where the temperature will be around 80 to 90 degrees centigrade for 6 to 7 hours. They'll be kept in that chamber, and the kernels get dried up. Then the peeling is nothing but removal of the testa, that is outer covering of the seed, testa and the tegmen. The outer pinkish or red pinkish brownish thin peel will be there, that will be removed. This removal is what we call peeling. Of course, then the grading. After that, generally the grading will be done, the full ones and the bigger ones. So A, B, C, D like, or 1, 2, 3 like, and broken ones, and of course small, broken, and half broken, etc. They'll be graded accordingly. And then before packing, they go for what we call sweating. So because of the drying, what happens? Drying and after grading, there is every possibility for the breakage. They become brittle. The kernel become brittle. So in order to avoid this breaking, they do what we call sweating, wherein they'll be kept in the moist chamber. Moist chamber, they are kept, and so that they absorb humid and the air coolers will be employed here, and with 80% of humidity will be there, and they absorb humidity, and then they'll be dried, of course, and then they go for what we call packing. So here generally vacuum packing is done, and then they will be labeled and released into the market. So this is about what we call the cashew. And the last one, of course, before closing, we will learn about coconut, very, very important. And as you know, coconut is Cocos nucifera, a member of Palmae or Ericaceae. And generally, as I already told you, the coastal areas are the areas or the soils where the coconut comes up well. And here, Indonesia, Philippines, India, Thailand, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Fiji, West Indies, these are the areas where you have coconut plantations on a large scale. And of course, here coconut, whenever we say coconut, you have to remember, exam is concerned, generally they'll ask you to write about the tall and dwarf varieties. Tall and dwarf. In tall, we have what we call West Coast tall, East Coast tall, and Lakshadweep ordinary. These three are what we call tall varieties. Of course, tall varieties, they grow to a height of about 30 meters or so, and they live for 70 to 80 years. And generally they come for fruit bearing after plantation of 6 to 8 years or so. And here number of nuts, your coconuts per year per plant will be around 50 to 80 or so, depending on the variety. And generally the copra content will be on an average it will be around 150 grams or so. So, and oil content will be around 70%. Now the dwarf varieties, which are dwarf, dwarf, as the name indicates, they're very dwarf. You can touch them. A fellow of 6 feet can touch. So by using small stools, etc., you can go for harvest. They are dwarf rather. So their lifespan will be around only 40 to 50 years, and they come for fruiting after plantation of 3 to 4 years or so. And here the tender nuts, the nuts, they are used, they are mainly grown for their milk, generally tender milk. And even the copra is very tender, and that can be used in making all your chutneys, etc. And of course, we have dwarf varieties, that is Chowgat dwarf and Ganga Bondam. These are the two varieties. And in Chowgat, there are two sub varieties, what we call a orange dwarf and the green dwarf. The fruit itself, if you look at the fruit, in a market, you can see some are orange, some are green. So these are what we call dwarf varieties. So dwarf varieties are very short, and they come for fruiting very early. And of course, they live only for shorter duration type, and they are mostly grown for their, juice or the milk, coconut milk. And their yield will be around, more. The number of, nuts you get will be more when compared to your tall varieties. And this is about that. Now coming to the other economical important part, it is the crop or it is the plant whose every part is useful. That's why it is known as kalpa vruksha. Kalpa vruksha, each and every part. The fruit, if you take, even the coir, the epicarp, mesocarp, endocarp, all these three footfalls, they are used in some way or the other. Of course, the epicarp, from that you get coir, big coir industries are there, your mats, your carpets, etc. are made, even rope making is done. Even the dust, etc., that generated in the mills will be used. It will be added to the soil, etc., which enhances water holding capacity. And the copra, of course, used in making various dishes. And of course, the dried ones, from that you get coconut oil, and that will be used in various ways. Of course, if you go to Kerala, that will be used as a cooking oil. Of course, good quality soaps making, they use what we call coconut oil, and it is used as a lubricant also, and hair oils, etc., for multi-purpose. So coming to the branches, of course, the stems, they are used in the building, house building, etc., hut building. And your branches, as a decorative purpose, and your midrib used in making brooms, coir industry, as I already told you. So every part, of course, every part is useful. So that's why it's known as a kalpa vruksha. That's why it's known as a kalpa vruksha. So this is about the importance of coconut, of course. Now, this what you have to do is you have to also know about the pests. Generally, of course, we have rhinoceros is there, Phytophthora palmivora. These are the, and of course there are certain bugs are also there. They do a lot of damage to the crop. So Tatipaka diseases, stem bleeding is there, trunk and root rots are there, bud rot is there, but of course caterpillar diseases is there, red form weevil is there, and rhinoceros beetle. These are some of the pests that are commonly found on the areas where this coconut is being grown. Of course, even for fencing, for even the ash you get, the ash you get after burning, either the shell or the other parts, that will be very rich in potash, and that ash will be added to your field, that enriches your field. So this is something about the coconut. So somehow we could finish the voluminous syllabus of your elective, that is crop production, in just 3 periods. Of course, this is the 4th one. Of course, in 4 periods, we try to complete it. And while discussing about every crop, I told you, wherever possible, I stressed it, the important questions that generally very likely to appear when in your forthcoming examination. So this completes my today's lecture, or completes fourth lecture of the series that are being allotted by the university. And if you have any doubt regarding your elective or otherwise, you can ask me. And if you don't have any doubt, we can call it a day. And with this, I'll be closing my lecture, today's lecture, and wishing you all the best in the forthcoming examination. Thank you.